In this video, we're going to learn from a very serious lesson about what can happen if you don't plan your career effectively, right? You can end up being 45 plus, like this guy, over 45 years old, worked hard for about 30 years or so, 20 to 30 years he's been working in corporate roles at management level, and now he's unemployed, dealing with a layoff, can't find his next job, trying to figure out things and scrambling to maybe find a side business or try to get another job, but he's struggling, doing tons of job applications. This is a situation you could avoid by planning your career effectively. Let's listen to his story here.
So just to give an update on the job journey to start with, well, that's still pretty dire. I've now applied for what is around about 100 jobs. And out of all those applications, I've had 2 interviews. That's it. And both those interviews, one of them when they went internally, and the other one I just got ghosted on. Let's just say if I had £1 for every application you sort of get ghosted on, I think by the time of this being over, I'll probably not need to work, to be totally honest. So the job hunting thing is still tough. I think I'm getting around to the idea now that I am going to start doing stuff for myself. I've been lucky, I've got a friend that runs a small business. I've been helping him out a little bit, just a few hours a week, but at least it's something. I think me and the other half are now sort of saying, what's the other option? What do I do? Because I can't sit here for another 6 months applying for jobs that either 1, don't exist, or 2, they just don't want someone my age. So we'll keep.
So before we continue with his story, I just want to say, look, he applied for 100 jobs, had 2 job interviews, he's dealing with ghosting, and this is the thing with company loyalty, it's very disrespectful, right? You're not going to ghost a company that you're working for or company you have a business relationship with, but if you're interviewing with them, they can just ghost you if they don't want to contact you. I remember one time I did a job interview for I typically worked if you're new to the channel, let me just give you a bit of background to myself. So if you're new to the channel, I've worked at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley and HSBC over 10 years in the industry and successfully interviewed at many of these companies and getting job offers there. I offer career coaching if you're interested. There's a link in the description. I can really help you take control of your career to build power, pay and freedom. So if we just go back to this story here and background to my instance is I remember interviewing at a fintech firm, and I've interviewed at many fintech firms, and this was a company that focused on essentially, it's like a digital bank. It's like one of those banks that only operate through an app, a bit of a company like Monzo or Revolut, TransferWise, one of those type of companies. And I had quite a detailed interview with the guy. He was working directly with the board level, a C-suite level type of opportunity there, and me working with them, not being on that board of directors, of course. But what ended up happening is we had a long discussion of me being a project manager or a product manager. It was something slightly different from financial risk management. And we had this long interview and we were emailing back and forth. And then all of a sudden he just started ghosting me, right? And I don't mind it that much because I was interviewing elsewhere. I got other jobs and things like that. But it was a bit like I wouldn't just blank someone or ghost them in a professional setting. I might have a delay in responding to them. I might need to think through other offers or other opportunities, but I'm not going to completely blank you if you keep messaging me. So we were emailing back and forth after the 1 hour interview, and then it just went cold. And this is the thing, like, level of disrespect you have to deal with as an employee, not just working there, but also in your job search, is quite unsettling and annoying. And then he's talking about ageism, and ageism is real. And this is something I want to tell all of you guys here. Like I say, majority of my audience is Gen Z or millennials. You need to plan your career, and that's what I offer through my career coaching. Because at the end of the day, what do you want? You want power, you want pay, and you want freedom. You don't want to end up in a scenario where you're 45 and older, you can't get a job, you don't have enough savings and investments to survive, you've got a wife, kids, massive mortgage, and you're struggling to even pay the bills, and your wife becomes the breadwinner, and there's tension in the marriage in addition to your inability to get a job and to survive even as an individual. So ageism is real, right? Older people, they have families, they need more money to see them through to retirement. So you really need to plan these things ahead, and if you plan and position yourself correctly in your career, you'll have the right opportunities to do that. But if you just leave it too late and think, oh, I'll just follow the standard 9 to 5 traditional career path, I'll be fine, I'll get a good 6-figure middle management job, and then all of a sudden you lose it and you don't know what to do. Avoid ending up like this through planning ahead.
I think this whole job hunting thing, the continuous cycle of it, just took me round and round in circles. And I just felt so fed up. You couldn't go outside because the weather was miserable, and you just sort of stuck indoors. If I'm really honest, I was just in a total rut. So these grand ideas I had, there was no progress. But I think it was weekend before last, actually, the sun actually come out for the first time. I actually started to feel a little bit better. Now, I'm not sure if I'm one of these people that sort of struggles with, what do you call it, seasonal depression, whatever you call it. I don't think I am. I think I'm just going through a bit of the work things getting me down, and I think the weather just sort of added on to that. But as soon as that sun come out, I just started to feel much better in myself. So instead of pretending I've done something I haven't, I wanted to sort of just be up front and say that I didn't go in, I was in a rut, but I'm hoping now I'm starting to come out the other side of it. So I'm going to start looking at those goals again, just start again now the weather's nice. I think that's important. In fact, you'd be outside in sort of weather like this as opposed to the pouring rain or freezing cold. Simple fact is it makes a difference.
So this is the thing, right? When you're going through a job search process, it's not just a financial issue, it impacts your self-esteem, relationships to your whole life, right? All you're thinking about is this emotional roller coaster you're going through the job search, right? It does have mental health impacts, and I wanted to talk about this through you typically hear the 5 stages of grief, but you typically go through 5 stages too when it comes to your job search, right? You have hope, where you're applying for 100 jobs out there, you're thinking it's going to click. You have excitement that it's going to work out in terms of doing job interviews and thinking one of them is going to lead to a job offer. And then you have anxiety, you're stressing out because you're not getting any responses. And then you start doubting yourself, your ability to find your next job, thinking you might be unemployed long term, or you might need to take a step back from a corporate job and go work in the trades or in a retail job or a low paying job in a fast food restaurant. You're not sure what to do. You're dealing with all this anxiety and doubt. And then you get a reignition, which is you check your emails, and then you get a new recruiter who reaches out to you about a new job opportunity, or an interviewer interview you did 4 weeks ago, they reach out and say they want to give you a job offer or another interview, or the final round of interviews. So it really is a roller coaster when you're going through job applications. So this is something I help with throughout my coaching, but you go through hope, anxiety, doubt, reignition, and getting started again with hope, excitement, then some anxiety and doubt, and then another opportunity. And it is kind of a volatile cycle. That's why I tell you to be quite emotionally detached and stoic when it comes to the work environment and the job search, so you don't end up kind of feeling miserable. But the other thing I'd say, and I'm not knocking this guy, it's just where you got to do your best to think about what's going on in your industry, what skills are in demand, because there's so many guys like this. They're 45 and older or 40 and older, and what ends up happening is they just live a comfortable life. They think they've got this stable life they can spend on cruise control till retirement, right? They think they can go from staying in middle management in their 40s and 50s, maybe be in senior middle management, and then just ride it out till retirement age in their 60 or 65 or 70. You don't really see, if you really think about it, a lot of top corporate jobs, you don't really see people who are older than 55 that often. People might have saved and invested enough to retire early. Some people might get a layoff, most likely, and get early retirement where they have to live on their savings, or they go and get a normal office job, because the perception of an older person beyond a certain point being in management roles is just not highly regarded. And sometimes you have so many, I don't want to knock this guy because I don't know his capabilities, but you have so many guys who are men and women who are in middle management and senior middle management over 40 who are the epitome of average. They didn't have to go through some of the grueling education that Millennials and Gen Z had to go through. They didn't have to really prove themselves by getting high grades and going to top universities to get top jobs. They might have known someone, they had lower entry standards when it came to some of these jobs, and you have a lot of mediocrity who are in positions of management. And then all of a sudden what ends up happening is these guys, they haven't planned ahead. They don't know this guy, but has this guy improved his skill levels, his qualifications? Has he thought about what skills are in demand? Does he know how to apply AI or any type of automation to his job? He mentioned working in corporate jobs around the airline industry, things like that. So aviation. So how has he really configured into that? Because a lot of these guys, they get stuck in their middle management job, feel like they get too comfortable. They think, oh, I'll just be here forever. Just got to delegate some work to the junior employees, be a bit friendly with the managers that I'm working with, make sure senior management like me, joke around with them. And they think that's their job, right? And a lot of them are realizing middle managers are getting wiped out, which is another topic I'm going to cover in future videos. So let's listen to another update here.
And I'll also keep you in a loop on the whole job hunting thing. But to be honest, I'm really not expecting much change there. As I've said, I think now it's all about going all in on myself and trying to find a way of making money for myself.
So what I want to talk about is he's having this difficulty finding a job, right? And he comes to the realization over 45, when he's been looking for a job for about, I think, a year or so, is that he's dealing with a harsh reality. He's not going to get another job. And this is the reality some of you can face if you're not planning ahead. And that's what I help with throughout my coaching. You don't want to be 45, spending 20, 25 years or more in a particular industry, and then you can't find another job and you only have one skill. His one skill is working in corporate, commercial, middle management in the aviation industry. This is the thing. And then we'll go through other videos where he develops some other skills. But you want to avoid this harsh reality in terms of planning ahead. You don't want to have a massive mortgage and miserable marriage and you can't provide for your kids and wife because you only know one skill. These are the type of very harsh realities of the economy you have to adapt to, right? He knows it's over for him in terms of getting a full-time corporate job. Maybe he'll get some contract work. And he's no longer in denial and he's accepting this harsh reality. So let's go and move forward to a more recent update. This was 2 months ago. This was about 1 month ago. Let's see how his job search is going now.
For those that are actually interested, the past 30 years I've been in aviation. Now that's been various operational roles, which meant sort of looking after the fleets of aircraft and making sure things were running smoothly. And then in the sort of final 12 years, I've been in more of a commercial environment, selling charters and contracting, that kind of thing. And my last role was as a commercial manager for a small operator, which I really enjoyed. That job's been a big part of my identity, or should I say that career's been a big part of my identity for those 30 years. I left school at 16 with just a few GCSEs. I started off my career basically cutting the grass at an airfield, cleaning the aircraft, all that kind of stuff, and I worked my way up. So there's been a lot of pride in getting to where I've got to. And I think that's why I've taken a little bit of a hit the past few months, when actually I may not be able to continue in that industry, maybe for the short term, maybe longer term. Then I also mentioned my side hustle. And basically, for those that are interested, I run a small coaching practice. And basically I work with small business owners to help them sort of get clarity on where they're going, sort of get organised with what they're doing and set some clear goals and take action towards sort of setting themselves up. And it's very small fry. I work with a couple of people at a time, mostly local people, but I really enjoy it. And that's somewhere I would love to see that take off full time at some point. But as I said in previous videos, that's some way away yet for sure. But I do really enjoy that. And I have to say that's the one thing that I could see replacing aviation longer term. So I want to go back to those comments I was talking about. And one of the comments I received was, "You're waiting for a boss to make you happy." And that really hit home a little bit, because I think it's actually true. My whole life has been on hold the past 5-6 months, waiting to get a job. And that's taken its toll a little bit, because ultimately I have no control about when I will get work again. I can control, obviously, what I apply for. That makes sense. But I need to have a different mindset to how I tackle this.
So before we continue with his mindset and how he's dealing with this, like I say, he's been working in aviation for over 30 years. Then it shows how he's been loyal to companies he's worked for, right? Some of them he mentions in other videos, working there for 4, 5, or even up to 10 years, I think, at some companies. And they throw him out into long-term unemployment, right? So there's no loyalty. And this is a warning to you, right? If you're not planning ahead financially, skill development-wise, you could end up like this. You could end up stuck in this position. I think one thing I'd say is lots of people deal with this mental health issue where they're in an important high status job. You mentioned doing operational roles, commercial type of business deals around aviation, and now he's gone from an important high status role to an unemployed middle-aged man. And it shows you how difficult this reality is, and a broader sign that society is collapsing fast. There's no real stability, right? He's unemployed, and it's kind of funny because you might have a kind of skilled aviation middle manager. I don't know his capabilities, but let's just assume that's the case. He's going from a skilled middle manager in aviation to unemployed, while someone who's like a Gen Z Zoomer 20-something gamer, gooner type of character online. He's making millions streaming, playing video games online. And it shows we are living in clown world, right? You've got women who are OF content creators who are making millions of dollars and have way more financial stability than him. It's all about understanding what's in demand in society and how to cater to that, or what's changing in your industry. And I get the impression maybe, and again, I don't want to judge the guy, but how aware of the changes in his industry was he aware of, right? Was he just thinking, I'll just clock in, do my 9 to 5, play a bit of office politics, and I'll be fine? That's just not a good approach to have. You need a skill set that people see as in high demand, right? Or entertaining people online, right? Like I mentioned for the other examples. Now, you don't want to wait for a boss to make you happy. And that's a comment he got that he was responding to there, right? And that's a real life lesson. Many people think, oh, they can happy wife, happy life. The phrase where if you get married, you've got to keep your wife happy to live a happy life. If you go to your job, I might come up with the phrase happy boss, happy life. You just got to keep your manager happy to keep making money in your current role. But the thing is, you can't really control how other people respond to you, the unstable, volatile job market. You have to make strategic decisions. How are you planning for the next 1 to 3 years of your life, or 5 to 10 years of your life, right? And then adapt and pivot quickly. And through my career coaching and useful advice, and even you doing your own analysis of your situation, you should really have a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year and a 10-year plan. I have that for myself, making these videos and growing my career coaching business and things like that, and being able to adapt and pivot quite quickly. So you might be in the finance industry and you might feel like, oh, well, I'm working this role, it pays well now, but maybe I do need to step into tech, because tech is a growing area, right? For example, or there's little niches to pay attention to where you're at, because what's going on in your niche might differ from what the news is. For example, we hear a lot about tech layoffs, but there's certain departments within finance where they're incorporating more tech, or there's higher demand for tech. So either someone from the tech industry could pivot into the finance industry, or someone who's in finance might want to pivot into that small tech team that's growing within a bank to make things more efficient. Now, this is what I mean about making those quick moves, right? And how quickly society is going through cycles right now. It's not just, I covered in another video where there was a massive hiring phase, right? I think just after the lockdowns, there were lots of job being hired in the corporate environment too, lots of pay rises, and then suddenly after that there was loads of layoffs, and the interest rates went up, and then all of a sudden companies weren't investing, they were laying off certain businesses and departments in their companies. So this is what I mean, how you got to be very quick to pivot for this economy. You want to build skills and build a personal professional plan that actually works for you over the long term. And if you check this out, throughout my career code course, which is also linked in description, I tell you how you need to leverage skills, and that's leveraging skills beats company loyalty. You think you want to be loyal to a company, they're going to reward you with pay rises and promotions, and often that's not the case. But if you have skills that are in high demand in your industry, you can pivot more effectively. You can create leverage and control perception so you stay adaptable in a system that is rewarding politics over performance. If you can't deal with office politics, you think a layoff is coming up, you should be planning on what skills are in demand in your industry and how you can pivot. I know it's sometimes easier said than done, but you need to do your best to at least plan ahead as much as you can.
Having a job, like a full-time job like that, one of the things it gives you is that sense of security. You're in a job, you've got money coming in, everything's great. But after going through the experience twice now, redundancy in the past couple of years, the truth is there's very little security now in a job anymore. If you think about it, and this is only my experience, I know people have had sort of better experiences of this, but when I was made redundant last time, I got given a consultation period of a couple of weeks, and that was just a waste of space. And then I got my 3 months notice period, which was lucky it's 3 months, it could have been a month quite easily, and then given some statutory redundancy. And that's, if anyone's gone through sort of redundancy, the statutory thing's capped at such a low amount, it's a very little amount you get. And this similar thing happened to me in my previous role, statutory redundancy after 10 years service, and I come away with very little. So when you talk about job security, what is security anymore? It's not really there. I think if you're a civil servant, maybe that's slightly different, there's more security there, but certainly someone in the sort of private sector, job security is a thing of the past. And in fact, if you were to save up just a little bit of your salary to cover a couple of months' wages And maybe even if you wanted to cover what you get paid in statutory redundancy, that's the best security you'll get anywhere else. And if you transfer this into working for yourself, what's the difference? You've got the same level of security, is what I'm thinking. So if a job doesn't give you security anymore and progression is limited to a few, what does a job actually really give you? And the only thing I can really come up with is it's a cash flow. So in order to change that mindset, I'm now approaching this in a different way. If a job is just a revenue stream or cash flow, then I just need to replace that cash flow. I need to look at how I start bringing in money in different ways. And instead of having the goal of find a job, which is what I had, I've now changed that to I need to earn X amount. And that's now my goal. How I do it is up to me.
Many good points here, right? So if you have 2 layoffs back to back, and if you work in the corporate environment or any job these days, the layoffs are way more common and they have nothing to do with your performance, right? So if you have 2 layoffs back to back, it really does change the way you look at things. I know people personally who've dealt with that. And there's not a lot of job security, right? And it's kind of rough, even if you have a lot of experience like this guy has. He said he had 20 to 30 years of experience, right? Security is kind of relative in a sense. It's always all about runway cash flow, which means that how much you have saved, invested, how long could you survive without working a job if you're going to be unemployed or over the long term working as self-employed, right? Not having one high paying job, that is just one part of it, right? You want to focus on working for yourself. You need multiple income streams. The 9 to 5, right, it does provide a level of stability, but now you've got to balance what's in the 9 to 5 versus what's self-employed, and both have a lot of instability involved, right? If you're self-employed, you're maybe a coach, like a fitness coach, for example. You have some clients which will be, paying you regularly. You might have time periods where you don't have a lot of clients or there's less demand for your coaching. If you are working as an employed corporate worker, whatever that would be, you've got that stable monthly income, but you could face a layoff that comes up out of nowhere that you couldn't really see or plan ahead for. And this is true. Any way of having money right now is just a cash flow for now. You don't know if it's going to last for a long time period, right? There's not a lot of loyalty or stability, and there's a lack of decent co-workers and managers. And sometimes that might cause you to job hop, or you might be pushed out of company unexpectedly so, right? So how should you deal with this? I would say you should focus on what job you do have right now, get in, do the job during your specific work hours, be civilized as much as possible in terms of getting that work done. But you don't want to get involved in drama or gossip. Just get your work done 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever that would be, and work enough to get promoted. You want to be a B+ player. You don't want to be an A grade player. You don't want to be a top player because they'll just dump more work on you. You don't want to be a C- player where you're not doing good quality work and then all they end up doing is firing you or just giving you low quality work until you leave the company. If you're working for a company and you work as a B+ player and you're not getting promoted, you just figure it out, like, what's the situation for you here, right? Do you want to quiet quit? Do you want to put in less effort until they give you the layoff, the next round of layoffs, you're part of that? Or can you use the company to build skills and then job hop elsewhere? You need to think about what leverage you have, right? Sometimes I remember working for a company where it wasn't the best, but I had like a decent management role. I was managing employees globally. I also had developing some new skills that were slightly different from what I've done previously. And then what I ended up doing is developing those skills, even though it wasn't a big name company that I haven't mentioned on this on YouTube. It was a smaller finance company. I developed those management skills. I developed those kind of new risk management skills in terms of technical financial analysis, and I could leverage that to get in contract jobs if I wanted to do that. So this is the whole benefit of, like, on your exit plan, right, in developing those skills where needed. Even if you're clear to you're not going to get promoted, you're not going to get a pay rise, but what skills are you developing? How does it make your resume look better? What can you do right now in the situation you're in to make yourself more attractive to the job market? And it might mean broadening your search. It depends on what it could be. For me, in that instance, I was like, okay, I have these very specific investment banking, sales and trading type of skills, but now I'm working for a smaller finance firm. Now I can manage financial risk management in a very broad sense, not just day-to-day trading activity. Now this will really help me in terms of getting any type of broad contracting finance role, contracting, consulting type of role I could have done around specific managing large amounts of money, with a reputational risk of a bank and different transactions, analyzing those. That's how I could basically balance that to work for myself. Now, this is what I mean. Now, if you focus on your exit plan, you can focus on a high paying job, high level of cash flow, savings, investment, and side hustle. All of these type of things you can focus on if you manage your energy effectively through the work week, rather than just burning yourself out and working hard for the sake of it. Let's listen to his story here.
However, I am now going to focus on purely on those jobs that I want and the ones that I think I've got a chance of getting. So that drops it right down, but I'm spending a bit more time on those applications. I think that's really important. I'm then also reaching out to my network, and I'm going out for contract work. So I'm reaching out to say, okay, my experience, guys, if not now, I'm around in the near future. Let's say, if you need any work doing, give me a shout. Is there anything I could do for you temporary? And I've had a few bites with that, actually. But again, that's...
So, continue a bit of his story in another video, but you don't want to be in your career is don't be one of these TikTok guys, right? Or these TikTokers you see where they do 1,000 job applications and say, oh, I didn't get any responses, I didn't get any job interviews, and they've got a generic business degree, they've got no specific skills in a particular area. You want to be targeted and be niche as much as you can, but understand what's in demand in your job market now and in the next few years, so you're planning ahead, right? And this is what I mean about work. That's another option I provide through my coaching services, right? Helping people set themselves up to get those contract roles. Also, not just permanent roles. You can leverage your experience to maximize your time freedom. And this is also linked to FIRE, which is financial independence, retire early. And what that could mean is that maybe you've got 10 years or more experience in your industry, you're working at a relatively middle senior level type of role, and then you have a layoff, or you decide to leave a company, you live a bit on your savings, then you develop a good relationship with recruiters and other companies, and when they want to hire you as a contract worker, you can do that for 6 months and get paid quite a high daily contract rate. Maybe they're paying you $500, for example, $500 a day as a contract worker if you have those skills that are in demand, and you do that for 6 months, and then you leave that contract job, and then you don't have to work the next 6 months of the year if you're getting paid $500 a day, 5 days a week. Save that, invest that, live a minimalist life. And that links to, like I say, financial independence, retire early, or barista FIRE, which involves some money on the side, actively working in a corporate job or in a coffee shop, things like that, and you've got a lot of time freedom to live your life however you want to live it. So you don't end up like this guy because you plan ahead, right? And I think the growth of many single men in the West, if you're familiar with my channel and some talking points I have, Stanley and Goldman Sachs, they talk about the rise of the she economy, of more women being in the workplace, more women being consumers, more women being career women, and less women being in relationships with men, right? 45% of women are going to be single by 2030, something like that is a very popular statistic from Morgan Stanley. So what are a lot of single men going to do who are not going to have wife and kids like this guy? What they're going to do is they're going to have a high quality skill set. They're still going to deal with financial challenges with this high inflation, unstable job market, but they're going to do things where they're going to be like, okay, well, maybe I won't have a family or kids, or I'm going to do it in a way that is very low cost. Maybe we live in a low cost of area in my country. We do homeschooling. I work in a corporate job 6 months out of the year, contract work, or I work even Uber, being a driver on Uber, and then for 6 months of the year I'm free and I spend time with my family and chill, and then I go and work for 6 months in a office job, 9 to 5, contract work, and then spend the rest of the time with my family. Or if you're single and a man, it's even easier. You can get a small 1-bedroom apartment, live your life however you want to live it, play your video games, have whatever hobbies you want to have, spend time hiking, things like that. Then you work 6 months out the year doing your finance job, your tech job, maybe you get some remote work, you work whenever you want, make as much money as you want, and then because you live as a minimalist, you save and invest all your money, you're just chilling, right? You're living a good life. And this is the thing, many men are fed up with work, and many men are looking for these solutions that all of a sudden you've got many people who just can't seem to figure out what's going to change in the economy. You don't want to get stuck like this guy. And I'm not knocking the guy. I'm just giving you solutions that could work out well for you, instead of being stuck in a situation where you're thinking things are going to work out, but in effect, they're actually not. And this brings me on to my career code course, right? Own your time or the company will. Now, typically when we talk about owning time, we think about having boundaries with the company you're working for in terms of setting a clear when you're going to start work, when you're going to finish work each day, and not letting the company force you to work late into the evenings. Owning your time in the sense that you want to be able to job hop at effective times. But in this sense, I'm talking about owning your time in terms of your life, right? If you don't own your time, the company will. You want to control your time and the progress you're making throughout your life. Setting strong boundaries to prioritize your non-negotiable life goals, reviewing your calendar weekly, ensuring your hour serves your mission. So if you're going through a job search, something I can help through coaching is how are you balancing your time throughout the week to focus on your job search, but also maybe developing other skills that will allow you to be self-employed if you want to take that route, or be freelance or do gig work. Other thing to focus on here would be around your time in terms of planning each stage of your life. So you're not 45 years old and unemployed and you can't the next job, and the company's kind of putting you under pressure in the sense that you're caught out. You're basically caught out. You're doing everything you can do, scrambling for your next job opportunity. If you don't own your time and build those skills effectively, that skills that are actually in demand, you're going to be stuck in a situation where you're going to have to take any trash corporate job, dead end 9 to 5. If you're not owning your time, developing your skills, thinking effectively, like right now, if you're 20 or 25, you should think, where do you want to be when you're 45? I know you can't plan that far ahead, and lots of people are going to say, oh, AI is taking all the jobs, the migrants are going to take all the jobs, or there's all this tax, it's not going to make sense to work, there's going to be UBI, universal basic income. Yes, some of those things could come through. Yes, they're going to have some impact on your job stability and your financial stability, but you've got to plan ahead, like your life in terms of owning your time and where you'll be at different stages of your life. Now, I've worked in the finance industry for over a decade at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and I offer career coaching, right? And I can help you, link in description, is I can help you take control of your career, right? To build power, pay, and freedom, so you can help manage these type of scenarios. There's also a course, if you're interested, about office politics. And there's a link to a newsletter. So twice a week, you can get free information from myself and the real tough lessons I've learned throughout the corporate environment to really secure your next promotion, land your dream role, deal with office politics, and really boost your career. Let me know in the comments what you think about this guy's situation. You think you're planning ahead to avoid this difficult scenario? Let me know what you think. And there are 2 recommended videos on your screen right now. I'll see you next time.